Welcome to the ATA podcast, where we talk to former elite athletes sharing their insights and wisdom derived from successfully transitioning into life beyond the game. A very warm welcome to the Athlete Transition Accelerator podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Joyce Sombroek, and I'm hoping to do my best pronunciation there, Joyce. A lady with an absolutely phenomenal record. Now, I don't mean to embarrass you, Joyce, but when we were doing the research, there doesn't seem to be much in the way of individual club or international honours that you haven't managed to achieve in your career. So, quick synopsis from what I managed to digest: 117 caps for Netherlands, a gold medal at the London Olympics, a silver medal at the Rio Olympics, a gold medal at the Hockey World Cup. You were voted best young player in the world. You were voted best goalkeeper in the world on a couple of occasions. So, well, congratulations on a stellar career, and thank you very much for taking the time to join us on the podcast today.
Thanks a lot. And I really like what you're doing. So I hope I can contribute a little bit.
I'm sure you will. Now, obviously, you're a humble person. We've talked about that fabulous track record within field hockey. You might be familiar that every guest we get on, we ask them to pull out one or two memories that now that they've retired, they look back and it brings forth a real sense of pride. So you've got a lot to choose from, but if we position that question to you, what are two of your fondest memories from that chapter playing for the Netherlands in field hockey?
One of the absolute highlights is the Olympic Games in London. It was quite close by from the Netherlands, so a lot of my family and friends could visit. We
Fabulous.
worked really hard. We also did actually a training office, like a training with the army.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and it brought us very far. And in the end, we worked really hard and achieved what we wanted to, the gold medal. So we're really proud of that. And the other one would be the World Cup in The Hague, which is in the
Mhm.
Netherlands. And we did another training, but then not with the armed forces on ground, but with the Navy. And we worked again extremely hard, also to build on our confidence, to keep on staying the best in the world, because everyone wanted to beat us, of course.
Of course.
But we did everything we could, and then we won the World Cup with only one goal against. So that was a special thing for me and the other goalkeeper and all the team as well.
Absolutely. That's always a nice a personal milestone as well as the goalkeeper. Now, as we were coming on to record this episode, you showed something off camera. This is as close as I'm ever going to get to an Olympic gold medal. So for the benefit of people who are watching on YouTube,
Yep.
can you just display those? Wow. So
So
that's
the
the
one is
Olympic gold from London 2012.
exactly, and the silver from Rio 2016.
Congratulations.
Thank
Fabulous.
you.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
So, obviously, we're huge sports fans, Carl and I. We could spend the whole podcast episode talking about your sporting chapter. But as you know, this is very much about helping people transition out of sport and into that next chapter, remove some of the fear and anxiety about what comes next. So, tell us just first of all, Joyce, what brought your playing career to an end? Did you decide to retire on your own terms? Was it injury? What made you think it's time to step out of hockey?
Well, I had an injury, so I have arthrosis in my hip, and it's been bothering me for quite a while during my career. And
Hmm.
in the Rio Olympics in 2016, I had to bike to the dining room instead of walking with my teammates. I had to get treated every day. I did cooling, dry
Hmm.
needling, all of those things. So I already noticed that I couldn't give 100%. So
Right.
mentally, I knew this would be my last Olympics. But emotionally and age-wise, I had one or two more to go. So that
Yes.
was quite difficult, but I took some time to transition. I can tell a bit more later, but I think it helped me to do it in steps and to sort of take control over it. So even though I had an injury and I knew that I couldn't continue for that much longer, I sort of made a switch in mindset
Hmm.
and said to myself, uh, I've reached everything I wanted to reach. We won all the tournaments you can win. So I also have a professional career outside of sports. and I would really like to continue with that as well. So I think those things help me to make it easier.
Yeah, good for you. You reframed the potential negative because for those non-sports, non-elite sportsmen and women that listen, and we have a lot of people in industry that are curious about the high performers in sport, just that one sentence of riding my bike to the dining room to eat with the rest of the team is crazy to hear the sacrifices that so many athletes make. But before we go back into those steps that you were talking about, Joyce, just give us an understanding of what you do now. You had a profession that you were going to step into. So what is the profession that you were talking about there? What is it that you do now?
So I've been studying medicine during my professional career as an athlete, and it's usually 6 years in the Netherlands. I'm very happy that I could finish it in 10 years. And of course, in an Olympic year, you weren't really able to study that much. So sometimes it would be only doing some research for half a day a week,
Hmm.
and the rest would be training 10 or 12 times. But after big tournaments, I always focused on my studies to
Yes.
finish those. And right now, so after my studies medicine, I've worked in the internal medicine department and cardiology and the emergency department. And I always knew that I wanted to be a general practitioner because in
Hmm.
the Netherlands, you can do a lot. You can see people from all ages. You have 3 more years of specializing,
Hmm.
but we can do small procedures. I do sports guidance as a team doctor as well. So I do a lot of emergency shifts. So I'm actually riding around in the area with a small ambulance,
Right.
visiting people at home. So for me, that's what I really wanted to do, and I'm happy that I can still combine my passion for healthcare with sports as well.
No, I love it. I love it. And is it a fair statement to say that despite that hip injury and despite knowing that you wanted to play in more Olympics and more World Cups, that you knew where you wanted to go? You knew you wanted to step into that healthcare world, and that made it perhaps that little bit easier knowing that you had a
Definitely.
plan outside of sport to step into.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important, even though it's the biggest part of your life, if you're training all day, every day, I I didn't see it as my identity. So I was
Right.
always when they said, "Ah, that's the hockey player," I always said, "No, I do more than that." And it helped me as well to how do I say it in English? I think it helped me to
Make that
um,
transition from
make the
sport.
transition. Yeah,
Yeah.
but also during my career, it helped
Okay.
me to play better because, for example, when you lose a match on Sunday, that's your entire world. You would be pissed, you would be
Yes.
down. And then on Monday morning, I would be in the pediatric ward. There would be a sick child, and I would help them. And it helps to realize that there's more in life than only sports, and also to keep you busy in a good way, mentally, keep on learning, not only physically, but also mentally. So it helped me during my career and also in the transition.
Well, that's really, really powerful, Joyce. It's one of the questions I actually had noted down that I was going to ask you, and you've answered it perfectly. Because just to give you a bit of an insight into some of the challenges that we get, particularly with young athletes, that they have barriers, often perceived rather than real, to preparing for transition. They don't want to distract themselves from their training. They don't feel as though they have time and they want to be 100% committed to give themselves the best chance of performing in their discipline. But what we are hearing every time we speak to an elite performer like yourself that's retired, that this is not an either or, that by being able to take yourself away from your sporting discipline and do something else gives you a perspective, changes your mindset. And you've just given us a fabulous example by being able to step into the pediatric ward. It gives you a context, a perspective, allows you to keep your mindset in a better place. So I think that's really powerful because you were at the very top of the game. You were winning gold medals, you were winning World Cups, you were winning individual awards, but you still took the time to take yourself away and pursue medicine, which you believe helped your performance as well.
Definitely. And it's exactly as you described it, but it's not easy, of course, because if you want to perform as an athlete, it takes a lot of time and you also need a lot of rest, of course.
Hmm.
But I think it's very wise to focus even in the beginning of your career and to not only focus on sports, but also think about what I would like to do afterwards, because there can always be an injury. You can not get selected. You never know how it goes.
Yes.
And I think you also did research, right? That proves that it makes you perform better if you have something besides your sports.
Absolutely. And Carl and I are talking about that on a daily basis with athletes. But what's really powerful is without any prompting, you've alluded to it. You've confirmed in your case that is the practical reality. And the other thing I just want to touch on, because you've already mentioned it, huge pressures on elite athletes. There is huge amounts of training time on the field, in the gym, in whatever discipline you do. There's analytics, there's all sorts of things that have to happen. And it's easy to think, I haven't got time. But I like the fact of what you talked about, that you had that disciplined approach to your studies. There were times when you could do more. There were times in an Olympic year where you could do less. You were
Hmm.
willing to stretch out the time it took to complete your degree and add years on, but you found the time. And I think that's
Yeah.
powerful as well. I'm sure that wasn't easy, Joyce, but I just want you just to, I suppose, repeat that almost for the benefit of the existing athletes, that even though you were competing at the very top of the field hockey game, you still managed to find the time to pursue your medical studies.
Yeah, and I think so. It helps a lot if it's something you like, of course. So I was motivated, and you really need to do a lot of planning. So schedule ahead and sort of um, decide this period I'm going to focus on my studies a bit more. Then I'm
Mhm.
going to focus on the athlete, on sports.
Yes.
I think that helps. I think it helps to discuss it with both your coach, but also people in whatever study or work you want to do,
Yes.
and speak about your goals, your dreams, and make them part of it. And I've experienced, of course, not everyone likes it, but a lot of people are enthusiastic and want to support you as long as you show that you're motivated, you're willing. And of course, it takes longer, and
Yes.
internships are very difficult. While maybe studying in your bed or when you're laying down on the couch is a bit easier, but it's worth to give it a try and to talk about it.
Yes. And I think the reward is what you've alluded to, the ability, despite serious injury and circumstances sometimes going against you, to have a plan, to have something that you can transition into. Because if you hadn't have done that study, if you hadn't have done that preparatory work, when that hip injury struck and you were stepping out to retire post Rio, it would have been a lot more difficult, I would imagine, mentally for you to say, well, what now? What do I do
Yeah,
next?
yeah, I agree. And then maybe you would have gone on a bit longer, maybe even longer than would have been good. And now I sort of stopped at the top.
Yes, exactly. So you've already given us an insight, but one of the questions we always ask guest Joyce is, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back in time, you've
Hmm.
walked this path already. You've been in elite sport and you've transitioned into medicine. If you were to give two pieces of advice to listeners, one thing that they should do, a do, if you will, and one thing they shouldn't do, a don't, to make the transition easier, it might be a repetition of what you've already said. But if I put that
Hmm.
question to you to say, do this, it'll make it easier to transition from sport into the next chapter. And don't do this, it'll make it easier to transition. What comes to mind for you on that question?
So the do is a bit easier for me. I think if you can, it's worthwhile to do sort of a step down approach. So for me, it worked very well. So after the Rio Olympics, I took some time off. I did an internship in Sydney, and I
Right?
went on holidays and hiking in New Zealand, actually with the goalkeeper from New Zealand, Georgia Barnett.
Nice.
And we were in the same circumstances that we were also thinking about a professional career outside of sports. Um, and it helped me to take some time off to think about it. And then I decided, no, I cannot continue due to my hip, but
Hmm.
I want to play on a national level,
Right.
which is possible, especially due to the experience that you bring. You can train a bit less, but still perform on the right level.
I see. Yeah.
So I then quit the national team. I played in my club team for another year, and the year after, I became the second goalkeeper and sort of team doctor. So when we played indoor, she was playing all the matches, and I only went in to stop a penalty stroke.
Right.
And I was there as a team doctor, so sort of mentally helping them, physically helping them. And that was for me, that was really nice, and it made me very proud to see the girls that were very young when I played there became key players, and to transition into becoming a doctor and not being the one performing on the pitch myself.
Yeah, I love it.
So
Well,
I've
good for you. That's such a nice story. That's the first time I've heard of that. Such a perfect sort of synergy between the next chapter and the existing chapter. The fact that you were able to tailor your playing down, but also bring in your passion for medicine and apply that to your sporting discipline in that team doctor capacity. So good for you. That is a true articulation of a hybrid situation. So that's a phenomenal do. What about in terms
thanks.
of a don't, Joyce? What comes to mind for that?
Um, Bit more difficult. Let me think about it for a second. Mm. Well, so I don't. I think it would be a shame if you don't think about your transition before you actually quit. And of
Mhm.
course, an injury can always make it earlier than you want to, but it's always important to think ahead. So if you haven't thought about it, if you haven't been doing anything, even if it's a hobby or discussing with people or just joining them for a day to see if you like the job, for example, or the studies, I think you miss out on something very important, and then you can really have a big gap after you quit, and it can take a lot of energy, and it can even make you down, I imagine, if you miss out on sports without having any plan.
Yes. No, well said. And again, it's so nice to have guests like you come to the fore, Joyce, and say these things because it is common sense. We all know deep down it makes sense. Use the time you've got, have the conversations, explore what you like and don't like, build your network. I think probably every athlete out there knows it, but there's a difference between knowing something and actually
Hmm.
putting it into practice. And it's easy to push it to the back of your mind and say, one day I'll do that. And
Yep.
guests like you bring it back to the fore to say, hang on, don't do this. Don't miss this opportunity. I would put a word in your mouth here, Joyce, as well, and I would say, don't waste time. I think it's
Hmm.
really powerful to hear of you doing a medical degree over a decade alongside your studies. I think that's a really powerful. Don't waste time. You do have time if, as you say, you're structured, you're organized, and you can dial up your focus on your studies and dial it down so that it complements rather than conflicts with your training.
And
So,
just to add, if you don't
yes,
know what you want to do, which a lot of my teammates didn't have a clue yet, it's good to, just like you mentioned, just have conversations, just try things.
yes, yes, well said, well said. And it's okay not to know, but how
Exactly.
how are you going to find out? It's not going
And
to come
use
to
your
you like a
network.
thunderbolt. Yes, yes, exactly. Another key point. And do you still stay connected? Are you still involved in any way, sort of mentoring? You talked about in that team doctor role, seeing young players develop. Because I think it's powerful when young players can take the advice from more senior players, both in terms of how you look after yourself, how you condition, how you transition. Are you still connected with the game now in any capacity?
A little bit, but to be honest, I also really like to get out of the world of professional sports and actually spend my weekends with my husband and
Yeah,
baby now,
yeah,
and go on holidays. And so I would love to become a team doctor again in in the national team at some point. But now I really like that I don't have to be in this rhythm of being away very often.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
do still, when there are tournaments, so the Pro League, World Cup, things like that, when there are official international games in the Netherlands, I'm almost always one of the doctors sitting on the in the stands.
I
So not
see.
the doctor for the team, but I'm
Yes,
still involved. And in the Olympics in Tokyo and in Paris, I was there as a doctor for Team NL. So in Tokyo, I had to do a lot regarding COVID-19.
right.
And in Paris, we have, you might have heard of the Holland Heineken House, and it's now the Team NL House. So it's where all the parties are going on, the
Yes,
ceremonies. So we had over 400 volunteers and people from news and all sorts of sponsors there, and I was their doctor.
Nice, nice.
So that was my fourth Olympic, and in February I'm going to the Winter Olympic for the first time. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, wow. In what capacity are you going there
As a
again
doctor
as a
for the team
doctor?
in Elhas. Yes.
Fabulous. So again, you're showing this roadmap of how you can blend your passion for medicine with your sport. And to your point about getting your weekends back, I think that's a positive, isn't it? You know, people
It is.
have lots of
Yes.
things they fear about the next chapter, but I think most people will recognize it's quite nice to have a social life again, to be able to guarantee you can visit friends and family, and to not to have to be as disciplined with your time, your diet, etc.
Exactly. And
So
travel and actually see something
yeah, yeah,
from
rather
the
than the inside of a
country.
hotel room and a
Exactly.
training venue. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can get more culturally involved. So, just obviously, we're talking a lot about what you're doing now in medicine, Joyce. I'm always curious just to ask about transferable skills. Now,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if there's not something immediately apparent here, but one of the things we always try and walk existing elite athletes through is the
Hmm.
fact that they already have skills that they possess and skills that they are developing that they can carry into the next chapter. Because it's very easy to say, well, I'm a netball player, I'm a hockey player, I'm a swimmer. What am I going to bring to industry? But when we sort of calm them through that initial objection and talk things through, they start to see there are a whole raft of skills that will serve
Definitely.
them well. What would you say one or two of the sort of transferable skills that you sharpened in your hockey career, but now help serve you in what you're doing in your medical career?
So I could easily mention 10,
Right? Great.
but I think during your professional career as an athlete, you learn to perform under pressure, and that's very helpful. So staying focused, staying cool, and it also really helped me to perform in teams and to help to build a team and work with different characters, different ages, communicate with them. And that helps me during my job and also my daily life. It's sort of, I think, mindset and the power of your team are the things that make the difference, both in sports but also outside.
Yeah, no, well said, well said. So there's two pretty universal ones, I would say, that
Hmm.
anybody listening could say, well, yeah, I have to deal with pressure. I have to step out in front of an audience on live television, in front of that real-time feedback with social media, supporters, stakeholders, commentators. So people are used to doing that in sport, and it does carry over. And I think that communication point is so important, particularly in certain cultures. I do a lot of work in the UK coaching within business, and it is a very commonly seen problem that people struggle to communicate well, and particularly to give and take feedback,
Feedback. Yep.
constructive feedback. So again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Joyce, but just building on that communication side, you will have been inside a lot of high performing teams over your career. And is it fair to say that sometimes things went well, sometimes things didn't go well, but you were able to communicate what needed to be done, what needed to be improved, and get on with it as a consequence? You were able to give and take feedback effectively.
Yep. And maybe, so I have one quote I'm thinking of, which is accept, adapt, move on. That was a
Like it,
quote of Pieter van der Hogeband,
like
former
it.
Olympic swimmer, but also our chef de mission during the Olympics in Tokyo and in Paris.
Right?
Because sometimes there are things you just have to deal with and go on, move on.
Hmm.
But also, it's not always easy to give feedback and to be vulnerable. We actually did some sessions with my teammates where we sat together and had to speak out, had to tell others a few things that we didn't like. And in the beginning, you think, nah, there's not really something going on. It's not big. But then you think, well, this one person is always late, for example, or the other one never really helps picking up the balls, just
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
something like that. Maybe something people can relate to,
Yeah.
but
100%.
you really have to do it, even if it's very small, because then you understand each other better, and you'll just the small irritations will get very big, especially in a team with women who are easy sometimes to talk to each other. But we really learned to speak out, and that helped us a lot.
Yeah, no, I think everyone will relate to it because it takes time. You didn't just click your fingers and say, hey, so you struggled at first, but then you got used to it and you were able to drive standards as a consequence. So I think that is something that every elite athlete can take a breath and say, I can bring that. And it enhances the culture of industry organizations that they join because people are not very good. People see things, the equivalent of not picking the balls up, but they don't say anything. People are always late, but they don't say anything. But then it frustrates people, and those frustrations then erode the culture. On a very personal level, even as a dad, my daughters are playing a little bit of tennis and they just have a bit of fun with it. And at the end of various points in the lesson, the coach asks everyone to pick the balls up. And it's always interesting to see who suddenly needs a drink, needs to go to the bathroom, needs to avoid doing that, and who actually picks up the ball. So, yeah, it is interesting. So, great answer on the transferable skills, Joyce. Just in terms of some of the quick fire questions that we always like to ask, and you've just given us a fabulous quote from your former chef de mission there, which is a great quote for everybody to reflect on. But this is a hard one. I know it's a hard one, but if you had to bring to the front of mind the best piece of advice you've ever been given, what would your answer be to that? It might be relating to sport, it might be relating to life, but if you were to share the best piece of advice that's in your mind, what comes to mind to that question?
So one very funny thing comes to mind, which is actually when I had to do shootouts, which is it was in the London and in the Rio Olympic semifinals. I had to do shootouts, so it's a 1-against-1 with a player, and they have 8 seconds to score. And you're always focused on a lot of things and the pressure, millions of people watching. But my former goalkeeper trainer said, the ball is a melon, catch the melon. So it's quite funny, but it means just focus on the ball. The only thing you have to do is stop the ball, make it bigger, just do that. And don't think about all the other things that you cannot influence. And that really helped me.
Love it. Yeah, control the controllables, isn't it? It's a
Exactly.
it's a great metaphor for that. So yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And then in terms of this may be relevant, may not be relevant, but a lot of the listeners to the podcast were asking us, ask about books, ask about influences, ask about best piece of advice. So these quick fire questions that we bring to the fore are very much coming from the ATA community. Is there a particular book that has had an impact on you through your career, Joyce? Is there anything that you would recommend to that question?
It's a nice question. To be honest, the past year I haven't been reading very much with a small baby, but
exactly, you've got bigger things in your hands, absolutely.
Yeah. But I have read quite a lot of books just from professional athlete coaches, All Blacks. So I don't have one specific book, but I liked reading, but also listening to them just when I'm walking around or listening to podcasts, and you just pick up several things. But I don't have one specific recommendation.
No, that's fine.
I can think about that.
The All Blacks, you might have, I don't know if you've ever come across the book Legacy by James Kerr. That was an interesting one, just because it got inside
Definitely.
the All Blacks, and it very much talks to your earlier point, doesn't it, about standards and everybody being equal. Somebody with 100 caps is still willing to clean the dressing room just as much as somebody with 1 cap. And so I think they set a good standard with culture, don't they? So no, there's no
what
problem.
I liked is it's called Management Drives, but there are many different DISC and BTI.
Yes.
I think there are many companies, but focusing on team building and different colors and how you can use diversity in a team. So I did after I quit as an athlete, I did like small studies in that, and that also helps me work. So I think it's interesting because in almost every sport you always have a team, whether it's a teammate or staff members. So I think that's interesting as well, to focus a bit more, because you always look through your own glasses. And we worked on that during my career, actually making buddies with people who were as different from you as possible. But I also still use that in my work now.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful, that is another great transferable skill in terms of the power of diversity, not being in an echo chamber. If everybody looks the same, speaks the same, has the same perspective, then you have blind spots. So that's an astute move by your coaches to say, buddy up with somebody that's different, because it pushes you to look at those different perspectives, which I think is powerful in sport and in life beyond sport. Absolutely. So another quick fire question that comes up a lot, Joyce. This is just a bit getting to know you. So again, do not feel pressured if something doesn't come to mind. But it is a question that comes up a lot, and it's, what's your most treasured possession? Now, we framed this if the house was burning down and the family was safe, what would you grab? But that seemed to freak a few of our guests out. They're like, oh, I don't want to think about it. So we've moving away from the fire analogy and just simply saying, what's the most treasured possession?
Well, you also already mentioned family, which is, of course, most important. And
Yes.
then the next thing I'm thinking about is actually health, because my mom had a heart, how do you mention heart infarct, like a
Right.
cardiac, you
Heart
know what I mean?
attack. Yes.
Heart attack, thank
Yes.
you, last month. And she's doing fine by now, so I'm really happy with that. But it just makes you realize that that's the only thing important, family and health. So there's not one specific thing, even though I'm really proud of the medals and they're in the vault, but health of yourself, your family, your loved ones and friends, that's the only thing important.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm delighted to hear your mum is doing okay. That's a horrible experience, but it's very wise to say that. And it's something we all take for granted, unfortunately, until it's no longer there. So I think, yeah, it's a
Exactly.
very
So
profound
spend time
answer.
together.
Yeah,
That's important.
appreciate people, and because these are all things that step into our mindset as well. And one of the things that a lot of athletes struggle with, bringing it back to the transition point, is they don't take care of their physical health. They've gone from a very structured environment, and then they're not under pressure to perform anymore. They stop working out. They're not having that same rigor. And I think that life skill, we all need it, irrespective of what we're doing, whether we've been elite athletes or not. Focusing on our health is so important, and
Yep.
focusing on our loved ones and our relationships and being present in those relationships is so important to our mental health. Again, we all know it, but it's powerful when somebody like you says that, Joyce, and reminds us of that fact. So, just one final question on the quick fire. If you were to think of somebody within your network, Joyce, that you thought, oh, they've got quite an interesting story, they'd be an interesting guest for the podcast. Is there anybody that you think we should approach and invite to come on to this podcast and talk a little bit about their journey of transition?
Well, there are quite a lot of people with different paths. Um, I think it would be interesting to talk to Marloes Ketels. She's one of my former teammates, and she's actually coaching a field hockey team in Japan now, in a
Right.
totally different culture,
Yeah.
and also working in the Netherlands for it's not the government, but in a local community. So she's doing something entirely different, and she quit after Tokyo.
Right.
So that would be
Yeah.
interesting to
That
talk
sounds
to
like
her.
that's we'll definitely look into that one because that sounds like an interesting guest. I think we've whistled through a lot of ground here, Joyce. And again, you go back to the start and everything that you achieved, and we do our research, but we never know exactly where the conversation's going to go. So it's a real pleasure, just these very simple but impactful messages about being disciplined, being flexible with your studies. It will benefit your performance. Tapping into your network. Do explore things, even if you don't know what you're doing. There's so many little gems of wisdom that you've put in there, and your transition plan, how you phased yourself out of competition, managed what your body would allow, minimized those indoor games, bit more of the outdoor games, and just gradually worked your way into medicine. I think there's so much in this, whether people are playing elite field hockey or any sporting discipline, that hopefully will support them on their journey and helping them make that transition. So I think it's just the final thing for me is to say a big thank you for your time. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. And if people want to connect with you, Joyce, if people wanted to find you outside of this podcast, what's the best place for people to reach out and make that connection? Would it be LinkedIn, for instance? How would people best
LinkedIn,
connect?
Instagram, both
LinkedIn,
fine, of
Instagram. Great. So we can put your contact details into the show notes.
course. Always happy to connect and keep doing the great work you're doing.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much. Thank you, Joyce. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us this week on our ATA podcast. If you found this conversation insightful and it resonates with your journey, please subscribe, follow the show, and stay connected with us for more insights, resources, and information on how we at ATA are supporting your preparation for life beyond the game.